Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are so thrilled to have in the studio with us today our Sheriff of San Diego, Kelly Martinez. How you doing, Kelly?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We're just absolutely honored. Joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. She is the Executive Director of San Diego Riders, Inc. They're celebrating their 20th anniversary this year in Liberty Station. How you doing, Kristen?
I'm doing well. How are you, Drew?
Very, very good. Honored to have the Sheriff in here. You want to get us started with some questions?
I do, yeah. I'm excited about this one. I don't know too much about our Sheriff's Department, so maybe you could walk us through your role, first of all.
Yeah, I think that's a question I get asked the most, honestly. People don't know the difference between a sheriff and a chief of police, and you know, there's a big difference. Mm-hmm. Probably the main difference is that a sheriff is elected, and I'm elected by all the citizens in San Diego County, so 3.3 million folks can, or however many are registered to vote, can vote for the sheriff, and I work for the public. I work for our communities. A chief of police, as you know, is appointed by the city council and a mayor and works for the city. The sheriff also has different responsibilities than the chief of police. The sheriff's department here in San Diego County is responsible for public safety services for 4,200 square miles of unincorporated San Diego County. So all of our rural communities, Valley Center, Ramona, Alpine. Additionally, I also provide public safety services for 9 cities in the county of San Diego: Unum Vista, Del Mar, Solana Beach, Santee, Lemon Grove. All of those cities depend upon the sheriff for their law enforcement services. We also have 18 Indian reservations in San Diego County. That's the most of any county in the nation, and the sheriff is responsible for public safety services on the reservations. I manage the 7 jails in the county, also responsible for security at the courthouses. There's also some regional responsibilities. We have an air fleet, Astria, which most people know about. We work with CAL FIRE on wildland fire response. We do patrol operations and search and rescue operations with our air fleet. We have responsibility for critical incidents that happen. Bomb arson, our SED or SWAT team is a regional resource as well. So my budget is $1.65 billion this year. 4,700 staff. Wow. So it's really the largest agency and the largest law enforcement responsibility in the county, but very few people really know what we do. So I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad we're having this talk because I've been feeling stressed out about my job, and you're putting things in perspective. So thank you, Kelly. I'll just think,
Yeah, not that I take it in stride, but I've been doing this a long time.
If Kelly's holding it all together, Kristen Fogel can hold it together as well.
So the Sheriff's Department has been around only since 1850. My goodness. Are they the oldest agency in San Diego County?
We may have started about the same time as the police department, but yes, 175 years next year for us, and we'll be celebrating that anniversary with some really special things. The first sheriff of San Diego County also started the wine industry in California, so we've got that going for us.
I think that's a great combo, to be honest with you. What got you into law enforcement?
That was my question,
I was 21 and working at the Denny's restaurant on Miramar Road. And my dad was a San Diego police officer, and he brought his squad would come into Denny's and have coffee. And, they convinced me that I needed to do something besides waitressing for the rest of my life. And I applied, and I've been doing this ever since. So 39 years. Yeah.
Now, did you start in the police department or did you start in the sheriff's department?
I started with the sheriff's department. I applied to both agencies, and the sheriff just happened to hire me first.
That is, who was sheriff at the time?
Duffy.
Okay, so and then did it go to Bill after Duffy?
So it was John Duffy. So I've worked for I don't know how many sheriffs now. Let's see, John Duffy.
Bill Colander?
Yeah, Jim Roach.
Okay, that's right.
And then Bill Colander, and then Bill Gore.
Right.
Tony Ray was our interim for a period.
That's right.
And then myself.
Right. So I knew Jim because Jim also was on the San Diego Unified School Board at the time. Right. That's right. So I was working for the district billion years ago on this. Obviously, obviously, and like I was talking to you about this before, Sheriff, public safety, so critical for all of us. It better be critical for all of us. 3.3 million or 3.4, whatever it is now in the county. I know important is certainly to Kristen. She's got a 5-year-old, and my family as well. I think it is so important for people to really understand, the critical role that you and the whole team play in this. Do you see that there's a better understanding of what you folks do and an appreciation? Certainly there's some very positive things with social media. There's also some very challenging. Talk about that.
Yeah, we've had a rough few years. COVID was difficult, and all the civil unrest and all the questioning of law enforcement processes. We are coming out of that. I think that there's a strong feeling in our communities right now that safety and public safety is very important. Absolutely. And we're feeling that for sure. We're seeing increased numbers and recruiting, more interest in people who want to know what we do. And I really believe, we're a public agency. Transparency is important. People should understand what we do. And I think the more they learn about what we're actually doing, I think the more support and more trust that we engender.
Yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
No, I had several questions. One was just, the role of public safety and law enforcement over the last 4 decades. What have you seen? Drew's kind of talked about the public image, but, has just your role shaped, been differently shaped over the last?
I think the biggest change has been technology, right? When I started, we were using pencils and with pencils, and we had, remember, carbon paper? We had, so we did all that. And, I was around when the first report writing, programs and stuff started, and now we're doing things that are so amazing. We're able to use drones and LPR technology, and the report writing systems are so different, and the way that we dispatch, computer aided dispatch, and there's a lot of we can text to 911 now, and there are just so many opportunities, and I think that's really the direction we're going, is to work smarter, not harder, and make our jobs easier. So
right, Kelly, not to patronize you, but you're so personable and so easy to talk to in that aspect of it. Talk about how important that is, with your sheriffs who have boots on the ground and all that business, to know their communities, walk their communities. Is that a big part of what they do?
It really is. In the Sheriff's Department, it's really important to me that we connect with our communities. We have a Spanish Citizens Academy now that's been, 3 or 4 years now. We had 100 and some attendees at the last one, and these are for our Spanish-speaking communities, which are sometimes we don't have the same outreach that we do with non-Spanish-speaking communities. And so it's been really important to me to make sure that the people feel safe and protected. They know who we are. So it's really important. And like I said, we have 18 Indian reservations. Right. So my relationship with our tribes is very important. The relationship with our deputies, some of the tribes contract for deputies to do nothing other than work on the reservations and support their communities.
Yeah, we are chatting with Sheriff Kelly Martinez. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast. We're now in our 18th year. We're brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades. Been doing great things for folk living in San Diego County. Honored to have my co-host next to me, Kristen Fogel. She is the executive director of San Diego Writers Inc., enjoying their 20th anniversary year. Kristen?
Yeah, I thought we could shift maybe to some of your priorities as a sheriff. I'm going to sound stupid right now, but that's fine. I do that from time to time. So I don't know when are you up for re-election soon? Is this is an election year? Yes. So
it is an election year, but not for me.
But not for you. Okay. All right.
So my term is for 6 years. Which is the first time it's ever been 6 years for the sheriff and the DA and some other offices. That was changed this last election cycle. So I have about, I'm a year and a half in. So about 4.5 years until the next election. Thankfully, which gives us an opportunity to work on priorities, as you said. Obviously, public safety is our core mission and core function. That's our main priority. Staffing and ensuring that our staff are valued and appreciated and giving the tools and the training and the equipment they need is a priority, and then improving our jails.
Okay. And we've talked to so many individuals in all sorts of different fields where, they just need more people. Is that the case in law? Are you facing a shortage? Are you mentioned the 2 academies that you just graduated, but Are you finding that there's enough people to staff everything?
Yeah, it's interesting that Sheriff's Department has over 160 job classifications. As I said, we have such a wide range of responsibilities. Running a jail is like running a small city.
Yeah.
I mean, we need everything from food service workers to people who process bookings to, medical staff, mental health clinicians, those type of folks. So there are positions that we are having a harder time recruiting than others. The law enforcement deputy positions, which everyone always thinks of when they think of a law enforcement agency, are easier for us to fill than other ones. I think we're about 98% full with our law enforcement deputies. We're still hiring, so if you're thinking about it, still come over. But we really need nurses and counselors, and we have food service workers. As I said, we're almost fully staffed there, but we still need a few more folks to do that kind of work. A lot of entry-level jobs. The beauty of the Sheriff's Department, I think, is that you can come in an entry-level job and then work your way into something else if you have a goal to be somebody.
And these are all government jobs?
They're all government jobs.
Which come with certain benefits. My father was a government employee, and it's a good thing to look into if you're
it's a great career.
Entry level.
Sure,
yeah, I think that people don't realize that government jobs have pensions. So when you retire, you don't have to worry about that. It's good to have a 401k, but you also get a paycheck every month for the rest of your life. And, there's health benefits right away, and there's a vacation and sick leave and all of those things that come along with government job.
Yeah, which maybe 30, 40 years ago, it was like, everybody offers that. But now I think that's a very big benefit.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we bring up quite a bit when I have folks on like you and talk about this, and heard this from Bill Collender when he was on the show, and with your buddy, Bill Gore and so forth, and Shelley Zimmerman's a frequent guest on the show as well. San Diego County has a reputation of having all of you folks from the sheriff, from the police, from the FBI, from fire. You guys really work well together. That is not necessarily the case in other big municipalities, is it?
No, and it's we take a lot of pride in that. State, local, federal, tribal law enforcement in this county work together, and I think that's why we're such a safe community.
Right.
We, in the law enforcement realm, we go to the same academy. Sheriff's deputies go to the academy with the San Diego Police Department and Chula Vista and all of those agencies. So we start really from the beginning in the ground up, working together, and then we work really hard to keep those relationships.
Right. And of course, a lot of this had popped up, after 9/11. And so everyone was marshaled together. Obviously, who knew what was going to happen afterwards? And then that was such a great takeaway from me, the fact that you guys all work so well together in this area, and that's unique in this area. I think it's something that citizens should know, should be very proud of, and feel pretty secure in that area as well. Before we head break, and we'll continue it after the break, what are some of the biggest challenges that you folks are facing moving forward?
I think just probably the largest challenge is our capacity to do all of the things that we're asked to do and that we want to do and that we know need to be done. Some of the legislation that's been enacted, it really puts a lot of workload, adds to our workload, but doesn't give us more resources or money or people. So we're trying to meet all of those things while we're still doing our core function of public safety. Right.
Can we talk, when we come back from break, talk about Prop 47? There's been a lot in the world on that, and having, my friend Shelley Zimmerman is going to be addressing that. She, of course, wrote a great op-ed in the paper on this. And then want to, spend a good bit of time in the second half of the interview, Sheriff. What can our listeners do to support your efforts? There's a whole laundry list of those things they can do as well. When we return with Sheriff Kelly Martinez, I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our AT&T area, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, broadcasting from the Mission Fed studios here in Scripps Ranch. And for more than 60 years, Mission Fed's been doing great things in our community. Joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel, Executive Director of San Diego Writers, Inc. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. We are back with Sheriff Kelly Martinez, San Diego Sheriff's Department. It's another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. She is the Executive Director of San Diego Writers, Inc. Kristen?
Yeah, I just wondered if we could get into the Respect Project.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Respect Project is something we're really proud of. It's almost 10 years old now. I guess we should say it's in San Marcos, and it's a program I'd like to expand to Spring Valley, Lemon Grove area, but it's really geared towards mentoring youth in our communities, kids that sort of maybe are a little gang involved or something's going on, and they're recommended to us from the schools or the community. And it's a year-long program, and they come in every week, and there are 2 deputies, and there's some other support staff there counseling. The location is a building that houses a lot of different things. There's a kitchen there where kids can come get a meal. There's a place where they can get homework help. There's outdoor basketball court and weights and things like that. There's a music room that was donated by one of our local community sponsors. There's a food pantry if they need to take some food home, that there's, they don't have enough food at home for the family. There's a place where they can get clothing or a pair of shoes if they can't afford those things. And these kids, it's amazing. They are mentored for a year. They graduate from the program, and many have gone on to go into the military or do different things. They continue to stay in touch with their mentor deputies that run the program. I know our deputies have shared with me that they've been invited to baptisms and weddings of these kids, and it's just a great program. And I think to expand it, I think our youth right now need a lot of support, both from not just from law enforcement, but from our community in general. And I think the more that we can give guidance to kids who need that guidance, the better off we're going to be as a community.
Yeah, I think that is so critical. One of the things that we've been chatting about, and Kristen and I really love to deal with this. Listen, unless you live on Space Station Mir, and even there you should probably know that mental health is just absolutely at levels we've never seen before. That provides a challenge to you folks, does it not?
Yeah, it does. I know that my predecessor, Bill Gore, used to say all the time that we run the largest mental health hospital in the county, and with our county jails. We have about half of our population at any one time are on psychotropic drugs or some sort of other support. And it's just not... it's sort of awful, some of the things that people are going through. And there's, we've done some great things in the last couple of years. The crisis stabilization units, like the one in Vista, has been opened up, and that's a walk-in center where people can get mental health help. Our deputies can drop off an individual there instead of sitting with someone for 8 hours in handcuffs at a hospital, which really is the last thing someone needs when they're feeling like they want to hurt themselves. So I think the more we can do to support those programs, the better.
And do you work closely with mental health, institutions or mental health organizations to get collectively to help try to reduce some of this?
Yes, we're doing a lot of things. We're exploring, we work with behavioral health with the county, and we get people stabilized sometimes when they're in custody, and we want to make sure that they continue with the program when they get out of custody. And so we do those handoffs, warm handoffs with our behavioral health partners and some other community partners.
Right, exactly. So I want to ask my producer, Brandon Joe. He is going to be a junior at UCSD. He also is the founder and CEO of Treasure Hacks as well. So he's an entrepreneur. But what is your perspective with law enforcement, if you've had any dealings with law enforcement, not necessarily mean in a negative standpoint, and folks in your circle? What do they think about public safety?
In general, I believe that we've hopefully haven't had too many run-ins with law enforcement. The only ones that I hear from are, in the college setting at least, are when someone like ODs on campus or things around that sense. But I didn't know that the law enforcement was also involved in the mental health space and bringing in some of these supports. And I'm wondering just a little bit, I'm sorry for sort of deflecting the question, but I was curious why you think that the mental health state of our youth today is so desperate in comparison to previous times. And I know that we can speculate on many different ideas, but as the sheriff, you work with people all the time and see all of these different things. So just from your perspective.
I think it's probably a combination of things, right? I think COVID definitely impacted people and how they communicate and socialize. Kids weren't able to go to school, for instance. It was online learning, which I think was really detrimental to youth. There's a lot of uncertainty about, what they're going to do next, how they're going to support themselves. The cost of living is very expensive. I think college isn't really stacking up for some people to be what it was years ago. It doesn't guarantee a good paying job like it used to. So I think there's some valid concerns with our youth today. And then I think there's a lot of things that are influencing and impacting the way that youth see the world. Social media certainly can have some negative impacts on kids. And it depends on what you're looking at. A lot of times people don't have a well-rounded perspective, I think, with what they view. And so if you're only focused on a single source for your information, a lot of times that information could be skewed.
Definitely. And it's like social media is a megaphone for any sort of negative opinions or negative things that are going on in the world. If you start looking at one thing, like say the conflict right now in like Israel versus Palestine, like if you look at one video, then your entire feed will just be populated and that you just keep watching and watching. You see that all the time. And there's rarely you see positivity on social media because negativity gets more press. But I totally agree with all the others as well with just being overwhelmed with how many things that we need to focus or quote unquote focus on, how many things that we're being yelled at we need to retain, to focus on, to manage, and to be a successful person, but haven't even taken, I guess our CEO, Charles, he puts an emphasis on understanding yourself before getting into a lot of this stuff. And I feel that as a youth, we don't have a lot of time made out to understand ourselves, that we don't have a spot where we're working at a diner and we have someone that can offer us a little bit of guidance towards going somewhere or take the time to even consider the guidance when, I got to pay the bills. Why should I stop dining?
Yeah, I think that's great. And thank you for that perspective. I do think there's, with kids today, if you're not busy, you're not successful as a kid, right? You've got to be involved in so many different activities and things, and right.
I'm a victim.
So your point about just being able to stop and reflect is well taken.
Yeah. So Kelly, we were talking right before you came on the air here about how important it is to work with youth and all that business. You got some academies. You talk about those.
Yeah. So last week, really excited. We launched our first Young Women's Academy, which was, I think, about 57 young women. We held it up in San Marcos, and I've got to commend my captain, Claudia Delgado. She really led the charge on this program. And for 3 days, young women were provided an opportunity to really see what law enforcement is and to also see what the Sheriff's Department does. They were exposed to defensive tactics and how to defend themselves and everything from a car stop to just really discussions about some pretty heavy topics, as well as a lot of opportunity to interact with women on my department.
Well, and I know we're going to have you back in with some of those folks that played a key role in that as well. Kristen?
Well, when we're talking about youth programs, I see this youth classes at the crime lab, which is really intriguing. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I've got another very innovative crime lab director, Jennifer Harmon, who she and her team put together a Barbie. Barbie lost her shoe, I think is what the crime was. And these girls all came in. I think there were 100 of them, and it was a Barbie themed day. And they went around and they had to lift fingerprints and find find out whose footprint it was near, where the crime scene occurred and all that stuff. So it was really well received. So
very cool.
So what can our listeners do to help support your efforts, support the sheriffs who are on the ground and everything else that goes in with these wonderful men and women that work for you?
Well, I think certainly just showing support for law enforcement when you see law enforcement. Also, if you have an opportunity to weigh in at the Board of Supervisor meetings or the City Council meetings where public safety issues are being discussed, a lot of times the negative voices in the community are the ones that show up for those meetings. We'd love to have people who have positive interactions or thoughts about law enforcement come and have their voices heard, and that's very impactful. Other opportunities, we have volunteers. I think I have over 400 volunteers on my department. Wow. Either our volunteer senior patrol, you can volunteer after your career is finished and help law enforcement that way. We also have a patrol that's on horseback. If you have a horse and you'd like to do some patrolling out in our backcountry,
Drew and I will volunteer for that.
You'll do that, yeah. I think I'm going to ride a horse in the next parade.
Nice.
And then we have search and rescue, which are all volunteers, and they go out into a lot of people wander into our backcountry and get lost, and so we've got to find those folks. So we've got a lot of those volunteer programs, but we also have things like something people don't know in our jails. We do a lot of vocational training for folks that are in our jail. We give them an opportunity to get their degrees. We have the Restaurant Association that comes in and does job fairs and offers people jobs so that when they get out of custody, they've got a job and we provide them a place to stay. So there's a lot of opportunity.
Right. How about for youth? Can youth volunteer?
Youth can absolutely volunteer. We have the Explorer program, which are kids, I think they're, and I could be wrong, but 15 to 20, I think, is the age range, and they go to a 2-week academy and they can ride along with deputies. They can learn what it's like to do the job. We also have student workers and student interns, so everything from our crime lab to our data services. We had 2 kids who graduated from San Diego State. They were student workers for us, and they actually created an application for us that we're now using, and now they're full-time IT engineers with our department.
Wow.
One of the things that we focus on, we're chatting with Kelly Martinez, the sheriff of our beautiful region here. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, is the vast amount of diverse jobs. What you said, 160 different job classifications, something to that effect? Yeah. And I think one of the groups that we work very closely with at Cloudcast Media is Classroom of the Future Foundation. It's been around for, about 27 years. I've been involved with it almost every year of those. But that focus is to get people aware of the vast different types of jobs that are in the community. I would use this example when I worked for the Union Tribune. Only like 1/7 of the people working for the Union Tribune were reporters. The rest of us were working, delivering the paper, marketing the paper, doing X, Y, and Z. You look at your vast majority of folks in the sheriff department, so many of them are not in patrol or they're not in the jails, correct?
That's true. We have everything from CNAs, RNs, LVNs. There's so many different things that we do. Records clerks, people work 24/7 jobs. The jobs in the jail, particularly for the jail deputies, are, you 5 days on, 5 off. So there's a lot of job flexibility as well that you don't see with other employers.
Right, exactly. Brandon, any other questions from the youth mind?
I was just curious a little bit more on the jail situation, because I know that in other countries, we do similar things where they do similar things where they educate those coming out in the force so that they can become productive citizens instead of going out there and being completely lost. And what else do you do but go back to your roots? So I totally respect that. And I wonder what else, how as a citizen should we react to those who are coming out of situations like that? What can we do to support? How can we be a good citizen in that case? Because I know it's a little tough as a citizen or it might be conflicting as a citizen to be able to interact with these people who are ex-convicts.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, if you go if you're in custody, and local custody now is no longer just 1 year. It used to be a 1-year cap, or you went to state prison. So now I have people in my custody for 3, 4, 5 years sometimes. Wow. And so we provide them the opportunity to reconnect with their family, to get substance use treatment help. They go to college, they get job training. We have a woman, Maribel, who has been a huge advocate for our program. She got her degree, she reconnected with her family. She got out of custody, and now she's a law clerk, and she went through our culinary arts program, and she's running her own business on the side where she provides catering to folks. So I think people who want the opportunity to change and who want to do all of those things, they're given that opportunity. If they're, I hate to say it, if they're with us long enough to be able to go through those programs and they get out of custody, I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference between them and anyone else.
No, that's great to hear. One of the things we were chatting about a lot of the things that are passed by the citizens, certain propositions and all that, actually created more work for you folks. Talk about Prop 47.
Yeah, Prop 47, and I want to back up a little bit too.
Please.
AB 109 is another one of those that made a big change, as I was talking about. California state prison population in 2012 was overcrowded. We were actually renting prison space in other states because we didn't have enough room. There were lawsuits. Then Governor Brown and then Schwarzenegger did realignment, which brought people to county custody if they're nonviolent, non-sexual offenders,
right.
non-serious offenders. So like I said, they're spending a lot more time in local custody. Local jails weren't necessarily prepared for that with programming and all of the things we need to have someone
right.
long-term. Our jails aren't, the cell space alone is pretty confining to keep someone for 3, 4, 5 years. So
right.
Having the money to rebuild our jails and to accommodate folks for those longer periods. Prop 47 is another one with unintended consequence of, you lessen the penalties of an offense or decriminalize things, then people find it more acceptable to commit those crimes. And so although I want to say in my 39 years in this job, we have seen organized retail theft in the past. We've seen things like, I don't know if you remember the baby formula thefts and things like that, where
Absolutely.
people, that kind of stuff has always happened. I think what's different now is the brazenness with
yep.
which people are, coming together in large groups and going in and just ransacking stores and running out. That's what's, I think, really been difficult for our communities and for law enforcement, especially when there's no penalty for those folks.
So, and I know I was talking to, I'm not sure if you know Bill, Kellner, a friend of mine, actually worked with Shelley when Shelley, I think, was doing City Heights beat or something to that effect. But Bill told me when Prop 47 passed, he's just retired as a detective for San Diego Police, said, Drew, this is not going to be good. And it's not been good. Are they moving to, so what's going on with Prop 47? I know Shelley wrote a nice op-ed in the Union Tribune on it. Are they working to change it, modify it?
I know that there's a ballot measure that's been put forward by the DA's Association, right. And then there's also some things going on in Sacramento to right. change. So I'm kind of waiting personally to see how those things shake out. The other aspect of this, though, is if we increase the penalties, we need to understand that our jails and prisons and probation departments right. also need increased funding to be able to support any increase in penalties that come back, because a lot of things have happened in those spaces.
Right.
So I think it's a good first step, and then the next step will be to make sure that we have the support
right.
And all of the services that we need to support that.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming in. This is just the first of, hopefully a variety of you coming in and chatting about all the million great things that you're doing. How do people, if they want to give some feedback, want to support you, how do they get a hold of you, or how do they get a hold of somebody else in the Sheriff's Department?
Yeah, you can always, email is probably the most efficient way to reach someone. My email address is on our website. I get emails from the public and the community all the time, so I'm happy to hear from anyone who's got some thoughts.
That's so good. Any final comments at all?
No, just thank you really for this opportunity. Yeah. People, as I began the show talking about, don't really understand what the Sheriff's Department is, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, one of the things, and Kristen and I just love doing this, have folks on more than one time. Obviously, you can't just say it once and we'll see you in a year. That doesn't work. And groups like yours that are doing so overwhelmingly positive things things. There are things that come up. We all know that. We can read newspapers and all that, and you guys are always trying to work on those. We can't talk about enough of the things, and who knows, maybe it's a pathway for someone never considered a career in the sheriff's department because of the multiple jobs that are out there. But we're looking forward to having you make a return appearance, Sheriff, and then whenever you want to come in and bring in some of your great ideas, we're here for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. We're just chatting a great conversation with Kelly Martinez, Sheriff, San Diego Sheriff's Department. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades. Just doing great things for people living in San Diego County. As always, Kristen Fogel, thank you for being my co-host.
Pleasure's mine.
Absolutely. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.